Good afternoon. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Dare County Board of Education to order. Today is Thursday, September 26, 2024. We're meeting at the Dare County Administrative Building in Manteo, and the time is 5:01.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agenda.
Have a motion on the floor by Ms. Bothwell,
Second.
second by Ms. Balance. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into closed session to meet with this Board of Education attorney to preserve the attorney-client privileges provided in N.C.G.S. 143-31811A3 and to consider confidential personnel matters as provided in N.C.G.S. 143-31811A6.
Motion by Ms. Balance. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Payne. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. We're in closed session. Do we have a motion to go back into open session?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we go back into open session.
Motion by Ms. Balance. Second by Mr. Payne. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. At this time, we have no action that will be coming out in closed session. So I'll be turning the meeting back over to Mr. Bass Knight for the discussion and the consideration of possible options of the mill debt.
Mr. Chairman, board members, with all due respect, I've done a presentation to you on 2 occasions about the options that I felt were out in front of you. And I don't feel the need to present that one more time. We do have some information that we'll interject, but I'll turn it back over to you for board members to share any information or their feelings on the subject.
Thank you, Mr. Bass Knight. Mr. Payne, would you like to start it off of discussion, or anyone particular board member like to start discussion?
Sure. The way I'm looking at this is we have an option in front of us to consider, and we already know, to consider the universal meals. But I think in looking at the universal meals discussion and asking any questions of Mr. Bass Knight regarding that, and getting any information we need, I think it comes down to 2 things. First is that. The second is the policy itself, okay? My thinking is the problem with the policy, well, it isn't really a problem with the policy, it's more with the regulation. And I think it comes down to, putting a $20 cap on the amount allowed to be charged. I would recommend that we vote on the policy and that we amend the regulation to remove the cap, and then have the discussion on the merits of the universal meals, and let's look at what the costs are going to be to that. But I'd like to have this off the table first.
Since it's a regulation, that's up to Bass Knight to change. Because doesn't the regulation give you the authority to change that at any time that you need?
Once we change the policy that gives him, we approve the policy that gives him the ability to change that dollar amount, that regulation is irrelevant.
Yeah.
For us.
But the reason the regulation was brought before the board last week was because the cap had been in the initial policy. We had a $10 cap.
Right.
We revised it to give the superintendent discretion on that cap. So that's why the regulation was up for review. And I would recommend that we leave the regulation or the policy as it is, and that we just remove the cap. And that takes that piece of the puzzle, or the piece of the equation, off, and then we can move to discussing the universal meal plan.
Fair.
So we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Brower to remove the cap on the regulation.
Correct. I make the
Well-
motion. Well,
It would be to approve the original policy that was up for review, where we were removing the that whole section and giving authority to the superintendent.
yeah, the part that was struck, if everyone's read the policy, we took that out, the $10 meal. And then we put in the wording that the board authorizes the superintendent to set the limit. The students will be permitted to accrue charges as outlined in Regulation 6220. So in the policy, we are referencing the regulation,
Right.
which is why we need to vote on the regulation as well. But yes, I make the motion that we remove that language from the policy and remove the cap from the regulation.
So this is considered the second reading of that policy.
Yeah, well,
Is that, because it
first reading was Monday,
was Monday.
Right.
so this would be the second
Did we
reading
get
if
through the
bring it
first
up.
reading? I don't think we got through the first reading.
It was presented as first reading.
Yeah.
It was presented.
Monday, it was presented as the first reading.
It was presented as first reading at the Monday meeting.
But the policy
'Cause we didn't
passed,
have to vote for it.
the policy passed, materially, it was the same policy that passed that was written in April. The
Correct,
board passed it 7-0 to put the $10 limit in.
correct.
So without the wording, substantially changing, my recommendation is that we just remove the limit for now or, that's what the policy and the regulation will be, removing the limit. Then we can actually begin a discussion on our thoughts and ask our questions regarding the universal meals.
Let me jump back into it. Yeah, let me jump into it. I'm a little bit of a loss because I was not here that other night, but it is usually the case, or it's always the case, the board approves the policy, then the superintendent adopts the regulation. If the board, if the board doesn't like the regulation, usually the way to do it would be to revise
policy.
policy, because the regulation has to be consistent with policy.
Right.
So if you don't want the superintendent to set a limit of 20, 30, whatever it is,
Take that out of
I just take it out of the policy.
Right.
And then the regulation by itself,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
he'll be changing the regulation because they'll have to make it consistent with policy. We don't have the board voting to change the regulation.
But the regulation is referred to in the policy, so we maybe just remove any reference to that regulation as well, in changing the wording to the policy.
Depending on how it reads. I don't have it in front of me, but
The cap actually is when it stipulates the regulation actually is what stipulates the cap.
Not as the existing regulation is. The one that passed in April, we put the $10 cap in. That is the policy right
On the
now.
regulation.
No, on the policy.
No, there was no regulation.
No, the policy, under meal charges, we remove that and we say the board authorizes the superintendent to set the limit that students will be permitted to accrue charges as outlined in Regulation 6220. So we're referencing the regulation right there. Let's strike that line. Strike the line as it's written in the draft policy or the first reading policy. So it would instead, there'd be no reference whatsoever to authorizing a limit or setting any limit. And then essentially the rest of the policy just, delineates what the the accounting and financial regulations are for how we spend money in the school nutrition program.
Mr. Burr, how would that sentence read in the policy as you're discussing?
Okay, the way it is right now, I'll read the whole thing.
Is there a
Well,
way,
I'll
to-
read the
It's actually
paragraph.
The red line part.
Yeah, the
Is-
red line part
is there a way
is,
to pull that up on the screen?
what is
for
being
Holly to pull
considered
that up?
is it's effective beginning the 24-25 school
to-
year. A
yeah.
student carrying a negative balance of $10 in a meal account at the middle or high school levels, grades 6 through 12, will not be permitted to accrue additional charges until the negative balance drops below $10. That's what's been struck from the original policy. What's been put in its place is the board authorizes the superintendent to set the limit that students will be permitted to accrue charges as outlined in the regulation. So I think we strike that line
Yeah,
as
you
well.
strike that too.
Yeah,
Tell me this came up on first reading? Was it
Yes.
Monday?
On Monday.
Monday.
So right now, the policy has not been changed in any event.
Correct.
So I see this red language. Is any of the red language in the current policy,
Yes,
Yes.
like effective beginning the
that sentence is in the current policy.
2024-25 school year, student carrying a negative balance of $10? That's in the current policy?
Mhm.
Okay, so we want to strike that.
Yes, and then we want to also strike the sentence
Strike
that
that sentence
follows
that was
that.
added about letting the superintendent have.
Red line.
Yeah.
Strike them both and
Strike 'em
then,
Hang on one second. He's going to see if Holly can pull up the red line version so that we
on the
can.
monitor.
Yes.
Ah.
I think that would help.
Yeah, probably.
Assembly, the last meeting, should have a copy of it. Yes, the red line.
The red line. Yeah, they're looking at the red line. Holly, Steve said Assembly should have the red line. Okay. Shoot, that's a quick mouse.
So the thinking is that putting cafeteria workers in an untenable situation of denying children food, that's off the table. Now, we can talk about the means and methods that are used to collect delinquent accounts, but that's another thing that should not even be considered regarding whether children get a meal or not, in my opinion.
Fair.
You want to see the red line?
He's got it. Yeah, I already got a copy.
And everybody,
They're still working.
oh, they're still working on it, yes.
Here's a-
Okay.
Yeah, it should be up. Brian, it should be on your screen.
So,
Go to page 2. Page 2.
Right there.
yep, yeah, okay, right there. So as I understand it, the red line sentence beginning, effective beginning with the 2024-25 school year is currently in policy.
Correct.
Correct.
It had been recommended to remove that. The next sentence, underlined red, is not in policy currently, but it's
Yes,
been recommended to be put into policy.
and it makes a reference to the regulation, which is why the regulation is now
Right.
in play.
And that the new motion would be to remove both those red line sentences.
Correct.
So there's no reference to any cap or the superintendent expressing a cap. So it will read, third sentence, in the event that a student is unable to pay for a meal on a particular day, the student may charge a reimbursable meal to safeguard the dignity and confidentiality of students, et cetera, et cetera. That's how it would read, and we just don't address payment, debts, how that's going to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that accrues a debt still owes the money, but we're not going to withhold any lunches
Right.
because of that.
Okay, and that's a separate discussion on collecting those debts.
Correct.
Okay.
So with that in mind, Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we amend policy 6220, removing the red line portion that was before the board. In the sentence that follows, the board authorizes the superintendent to set the limit that the students will be permitted to accrue charges as outlined in regulation 6220R. Remove that line as well.
I'll second that.
I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Brown, second by Ms. Balance. Any further discussion on policy 6220? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Now that we have that out of the way, I do have questions on the universal meals discussion. We all got a document from Mr. Bass Knight showing, what the ISP percentages are for each school and the number of students who are eligible for free and reduced and paid meals. And, first question I have is the ISP, is that number, how many kids are eligible for, or is that, how's that number derived?
If you look at the, let me borrow this from you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll pull it up on my computer. Up at the top of that explanation that I handed you, meals will be claimed based on the following calculation. The percentage of ISP students times a USDA defined multiplier of 1.6% gets us to that eligibility of percentage.
Okay, so it's based on the USDA's eligibility.
Yes.
Okay, looking at the eligibility requirements that I found in the Federal Register, a family of four with a household size of four, that number would be, in order to qualify for a free and reduced lunch, would be about $4,800 a month gross income. which equates, or that comes to about a $57,000 annual salary in the household. So we look at the free and reduced and paid meals. We have free and reduced, about 55% of students last year, the 22-23 school year, 55% of the students were free and reduced or were eligible for that. In the 23-24 school year, 57% free and reduced. I guess the question is, how many lunches do students get in a day on average? We've got just roughly, say, rounded up to 5,000 students. Are that many students even getting a lunch, a free and reduced lunch, or if
I believe the number, sorry. I believe the number we used in our calculations, and I'll lean on Chubby for this. I'm sorry, Ms. Kalita Govan. Sorry. It was 2,000 is the number of meals that last year that we were serving. So that's the number we used in those calculations.
That's lunches. I want to clarify something. The ISP for the CEP is based on identified students. It's not based on the application or income process. It's certified based on students that are receiving any type of social service benefit like SNAP, TANF, homeless, migrant, runaway. If they're principal complete applications, it's not just families completing an application. It's based on identified students.
And that's on your notes as well, on the
So it's
middle of
just
the
not
front page.
based on the income. It's based on certain data we pull from social services
And who can certify a student?
social services, DHHS, the homeless migrant liaison coordinator, runaway, and a principal, if they complete an application as an administrator, they can. So it's a small set of categories. that
So
apply.
ISP is identified student percentage. And those students are direct certified, Medicaid free,
Yes.
homeless, runaway, migrant, foster care, Head Start, or principal certified.
Correct.
so that's not like census data or anything like that.
No.
No population data.
No population.
The number could potentially be higher than that. Is that?
Yes, it could be, depending on if we have a lot of students that are either homeless or migrant. If you have like a natural disaster, that could increase because if the county or state's giving out disaster relief, that increases the number of students that could potentially be directly certified. So yes, it could.
Like if there's a storm and somebody's home is damaged, then they're classified as homeless.
Correct. Mhm.
So that could change at any
That
moment.
could change, yes. If they're receiving food stamps or if they're receiving Medicaid free, we pull that data from DHHS at the state level.
Do we reject a lot of applications for free and reduced lunches, or do we get a lot?
Well, we do. We processed currently over 500 this school year so far since the first day of school. I can't actually tell you the number of students that have been denied, but they're basically denied if they are based on income. But I can get that data.
So we have like a lot fewer people actually applying for free and reduced lunches than the data would indicate could get the free and reduced lunches, right?
It could, but we do a 30-day carryover eligibility. So for the first 30 days of school, I mean, people don't necessarily apply, but once their benefit ends, then you see another wave of applications that could potentially start coming in,
Okay,
which is
okay.
October 1st.
And that's coming
It's
up.
coming up.
How can they apply? Do they have to come into the school? Can they do it online? How do they apply?
They can apply online. They can apply, come to the school, pick up application. They can actually print one online. We have a paper application online. They can print it off, fill it in, and send it in. But online is, pretty easy. They just go to a link and complete it, and it comes to us automatically.
So right now, you said we had 500 applications, but you don't know how many have been approved or denied.
I know how many have been approved, but denied, I do not know how many actually been denied. I can get that information because we track that.
But in the parent portal, it's hard to kind of, you have to scroll pretty much down to the end of the parent portal to find that application. It might be easier to put like a button or something up on the home.
I think we talked about that the other day, and Hannah has actually moved it up and put a link on the page, so it's much more prominent. I appreciate that suggestion because we did that right after that meeting.
So in the past, ballpark it, how many, let's say 500 last year, how many of those on average would not qualify?
Well, that's hard to determine.
I mean, 1%, 20%, 50%?
I'll have to actually look at that data.
I'd rather she provide you with the actual
I'll
data than
actually
taking a
look at
guess.
that, just, yes.
Okay.
And it varies because they can apply anytime during the school year. So, I mean, it's not, one time and done. They can apply seasonal employees, they can apply tomorrow.
Right. And you say normally this goes up. It's just now it's only 500 because it's just the beginning of school.
It's just the beginning of school, so yes. So we still have, several families that have not applied.
Right.
So do
And when
those
that
apply-
30-day window expires, you'll get
We'll
another,
get another wave.
Right. And Hatteras is completely out of,
Hatteras completely out of this equation, yes.
so it's not 5,000 kids.
No.
Once they're on it, does it carry over from year to year, or do they have to apply every year?
Apply every year. You get a 30-day carryover from year to year, but other than that, you have to apply every single year, yes.
Do you have the number of that were on all year from last year?
We have the number of students that were on free and reduced last year. We do. I would have to actually provide you that data because I don't know off the top of my head.
So because we're under the National School Lunch Plan,
Mhm.
what that means is we get reimbursed
Correct.
based on a regular lunch, a free lunch, or a reduced lunch price. And depending on what they qualify for, depends on how much money we get back.
That's correct.
So on a regular lunch, and I asked you these numbers, there was 51 cents for a regular lunch that we get reimbursed. Reduced was 4.12, and the other is 4.52. But that doesn't account for, so they give us that back, but that's to cover salaries, that's to cover food costs, that's to cover everything that surrounded our lunch nutritional.
Correct. Food service is an enterprise fund. We make all of our money and we use it to support and run our program.
And there's currently 106 districts in the state that are on a universal?
Or some type of program.
some type of program, CEP, universal meals, or some portion of their district is covered by that. Yes, ma'am.
And at the end of the day, when the money's not owed, or when the money's owed and not paid, we pick up the tab because we don't have a choice.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
So in essence, whether we're on universal lunch or not, we're still tax funded.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
At the end of every school year.
Right.
Well, just to back up on the funding formula, because I'm not sure I'm clear on that. We're talking about the CEP, right?
No, I'm talking about for National School Lunch Program
Okay.
that we're under. So it's my understanding, we have the National School Lunch Program, and because we're part of that, we qualify for a CEP or universal free or other grant programs that the federal government offers, but we have to be under that first umbrella.
We have an agreement that we agreed that we're going to operate, and administer
Sure.
nutrition program under the National Lunch Program.
I think that was me. I think that was me.
So then we're saying 51 cents out of every dollar gets reimbursed, and that is regardless of the number of free, reduced, or paid meals? Or I got lost in the numbers there.
So if somebody comes through the lunch line and they are just a regular student paying
Paid
for their
student.
lunch, they're paying us $3.50. Is that high school?
Yeah.
$3.25 high school.
Okay, so they're paying $3.25. We're getting reimbursed back 51 cents.
Regardless of the number of students who are eligible?
Correct.
Okay, so,
Correct.
But if a reduced student comes in that's been qualified as reduced, their cost is $3.25 and they're reimbursing us $4.12.
they reimburse us more.
Yes.
You get more for free and reduced students. That's
Right.
where you get most. of
So-
your money.
Under the National School Program, what they're saying is the more people you have participating, the more money you make.
Correct. The more free and
So the
reduced.
goal would be to get everybody on it.
To get everybody to qualify, yes. To get all the students eating, absolutely.
In this email that Mr. Bass Knight sent out to us, there at the bottom, So since Monday, September the 16th, Board of Education meeting, we have seen a significant increase in the number of breakfast and lunches served. We're working on the data to get it to us. Do you have that data tonight?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think Steve has that ready for you.
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
If you would
So-
pass that out, or do you have it?
Oh,
printed?
yeah, I
Okay.
didn't print it, but I can.
That's
and-
fine.
And we're talking, what we did is we compared the 7 days since the last board meeting to the similar 7 days last year, just to see, it's only 7 days, so it's.
Right.
You can't draw too much from it, but just to see what the difference is. And breakfast participation district-wide has gone up 31% in those 7 days. And lunch participation has gone up almost 14.7%. And, again, last year compared to this year.
And if I may, to take that a step further, if you take the elementary schools out, because we've been talking about secondary, middle, and high schools. The middle and high school breakfast participation in the last 7 days is up 41.46%. And the lunch participation for middle and high schools is up 21.85% in the last 7 days.
And I do have a copy of that if you want to.
Yes, please.
I find it interesting too, that in the breakfast, in the elementary schools breakfast menu, Kitty Hawk Elementary School, which in the data that I provided for you, that Mr. Brower requested, Kitty Hawk Elementary School is actually, based on their ISP, they are at 18.51%. So they are potentially eligible to be covered in these programs. They're not ineligible, but they're potentially eligible. But they are our lowest percentage. But in the last 7 days, their breakfast served at Kitty Hawk Elementary School is up 58%, and the lunches served are up 28%.
So with that, that's breakfast and lunches at no charge to any student.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, okay. Student goes through the lunch line, they get to the cash register. How does a student check out?
Well, we don't identify student statuses. They have their student number, which is a unique number to the student. And they put their number in the pin pad that we have, and they go through the line. There's no money, don't have to change hands. There's nothing. Even if people were paying, you don't really know because people prepay a lot and the numbers are unique.
So
to the
nobody
student.
knows if a student has an account or if they're getting free and reduced or anything. It's
No.
just,
No one
I want to
knows.
make sure everybody understands
Yep,
that.
no one knows that information. We cannot share that with anyone.
Now, how,
Because a lot of what I've heard is from Facebook,
Yeah.
which I'm about over Facebook. Well, the students are getting embarrassed. Well, in my experience, that's what happened. Nobody knows because they punch the code number in and they go through the line.
No one knows.
Right.
Now, but that's because we took the cap
That's
off.
to the capital. The only thing is if a student's coming through the line, they have to pay. The manager, whoever's cashier may say if they owe $20, okay, Khalid, you owe $20, you need to bring some money tomorrow. And eventually, if you keep telling a student that, at what point are they gonna not come? So, I mean, at that point, they may be embarrassed if we are telling them they need money.
But we also would make a phone call home to parent.
We do. We
Right.
call, we text, we
Okay.
email,
I think that's,
whatever we can do.
I think that's reasonable. You go to check out anywhere and you're short.
When you were principal, did you do that?
What? She just said if a student's short, she's going to remind the student that they're short.
Right. And
So
if
who
they-
else, why wouldn't they do that?
Right, but if they don't do it, at the end of the day, the principal's responsible for that. So so our principals are having to make all these calls every week or every
They
month.
come in turn.
Well, how many
in the
phone
form of
calls
a
are we making? I mean,
robocall.
200,
Yeah.
300? I mean, in a week?
Um,
One principal.
Well, I'm not sure how much one principal makes, but I mean, when we send out emails, it's hundreds and hundreds of students. It's not, it's a lot of students.
And the higher the.
And
cap-
we do
higher
$5
the
and
cap
more.
we're
We don't
talking
do
about,
like if they owe
The
a
longer the
penny.
list gets.
Mhm.
so if a student's coming through the line, they get their lunch that's eligible, but if they want to have chips, ice cream, whatever, that is not eligible.
No, they have to pay for that.
They have to pay for that.
Yes.
And if they don't have
Only the
money in their
reimbursement.
account for that,
They have to
does
put
it get
that.
taken away or do they?
They cannot purchase it if they don't have money.
They
You have to
cannot
have money. We do not
This is
charge
just their
snacks.
basic
It's
meal.
just
Basic,
the
yeah.
meal. Just the meal.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think you mentioned that the sales, supplemental sales had gone up as well.
It has, supplement sales has also gone up as well.
Under the CEP,
Correct.
you were able to, I know with Hatters, you were able to group them to get more people, because our goal really would be, if we were to go with the universal plan and the county's willing to help us with that, and we are able to couple some of these schools together to get us to that 62.5%, that's going to reduce our taxpayer costs.
It will. If we can get to 62.5%, I mean, that would, every student in that grouping would eat at no cost. We would get 100% reimbursement at the highest rate. In order to get that, we would have to get identified students based on the certification.
Right.
Correct.
So in essence, what it would cost this year, because we're past any kind of application period for CEP for our schools for next year, but for next June, we might be at 450, or I think, is that what we were at? That was a suspected guess of what it was going to be this year if we do this?
The CEP figure was a little over 500,000 and the estimate for universal meals was around 400.
Okay, so, but at 400 for this year, if we go this route, then next year, if we can couple schools together and we can get our participation up, we could essentially reduce that cost further lower to our local dollars.
Yes. So CEP, the higher you are, the better you are. And the more meals you serve, the more reimbursement you actually obtain. So the goal would be, if you do CEP, is to increase breakfast and lunch participation, if not, to a higher percentage. So that would actually give you a maximum reimbursement rates.
Right.
And in 7 days, we're doing that. And in
Absolutely.
the calculations that your staff and administrators has provided to us tonight. So in that 7 days, we're going in that direction.
Well,
Yes, we are.
and with that, keeping the context it's in, if we're offering food for free, oh yeah, I want to take it. That's like TL's down the street. If they put a sign out today that said free lunch, they're going to serve more lunches. So I think we're looking at, if we're offering free, kids are going to take it, so the numbers will go up. That's a no-brainer.
Yes, it is.
That's a
And for our
no-brainer.
goal, our
Right.
program, I mean, would actually hopefully continue to try to break even, because that would increase our reimbursement as well.
But what I think is, if these kids have this opportunity to eat, they're not going to worry so much about, oh my gosh, I can't pay for lunch, I'm just going to not eat. And then their learning ability goes down. And if it's really not costing us anything in the long run, the more kids we get, why wouldn't we do it?
How many students are we denying food to? I would think hopefully zero.
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
How many students are we denying food to? I would think that would be, I hoped it would
It
be
is now.
zero.
Well, I mean, if you have a cap, eventually, I'm not sure what it could be. If there's a cap and the students are at the cap, I mean, we would
But-
have to do
and if the-
something. I don't know. what
And
that
if the
would be.
parents aren't paying that, our tax dollars are still covering it.
And
To the
I,
tune of 24,
$38,000
25,000 as
instead,
opposed to 400,000.
Well,
but I
Ms.
think
Rashad.
too, that if we might not be saying you can't have food, but a kid might say, I'm not even going to go up there because I can't afford it.
They might not even be in the line.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And so then that kid's not eating.
Let me, because I think this, Rashad, talk to us a little bit about the figures that we've been using for meal debt are end of year figures. We're 38,000 and we got it down to 26.
Mhm.
But Rashad, talk to us about meal debt during the school year.
So the meal debt goes through the charge account, which essentially we can look at as a potential debt exposure. So at the end of the last year, the total exposure in that account was 115,000. Now, of course, that can change based on when people pay. They may pay the next day. They could pay a month from now. They may not pay. So that 115 is kind of where the account flows through. But then you'll have people that will pay, that comes in and pay in person. They may pay online. So that figure that I think this year's around 24,000 is after extensive debt collection on behalf of the Child Nutrition Department as well as the schools. Particularly in the summer, I believe principals help with that as well. So that 24,000 is after a lot of extensive work. So it could possibly be a higher potential if if people know that those funds will be covered at the end of the year. So.
And you're also paying cafeteria workers, principals, Kalita and her staff. You're paying for them to send emails and make phone calls and try to get this money back in throughout the school year. It would be nice to say it doesn't happen until June, that it happens every day, every week, that we have staff members who are trying to get that money back in.
I'm going to look at this from a business point of view, okay? And this is why I wanted to print this out. If y'all would take one of these and pass it down. Our customer is our student, right? Customer success is our goal, right? So this chart that I've just handed you guys, the link between free and school lunches and academics, you can see math and ELA over the course of 3 years goes up dramatically. So if we start looking at this instead of giving people free meals and start looking at it as an investment in our students, which are our customer, and their academic success, this is the cost of business. Just like insurance, just like any other bill you have when you run a business. And this is a business. This unburdens our principals and our cafeteria workers emotionally from having to deal with that. It takes away the conflict of interest that our principals face trying to help them with their academic success while they're also saying, and by the way, you owe me $50. And we're keeping our children fed. It's common sense. It is the cost of doing business. It's what we need to do.
That was the whole point in revising the policy.
You're right. It was. And we thought it was going to work, and it didn't. It made it way worse, and it's brought us to this point.
We just
COVID
revised the
Just revised
policy
it. How did it
today.
change? We just revised it.
Revised it that says that they can charge and now we can feed them, but then we're still have our principals and our cafeteria workers having to collect this money. And at the end of the day, having to pay it anyway or go to the county for it for anyway. It's a cost of doing business. We're in the business of student success. It's proven student success. It's proven student success. I think it's a small price to pay, and considering Kalita saying that over the course of the next 2 to 3 years under the CEP program, the more people we have, the less it costs. There's some districts that break even on this with federal funding, correct? Because of the reimbursements we get from the federal. So our county dollars is going to reduce. At the end of the day,
You have to get people to sign up first.
Why wouldn't they sign up? It's way easier
but
to
it's
sign
still
up. They
hard to get
also
people
have
to
to be
sign up.
certified.
They're not signing up now sometimes.
Yeah.
You don't have to sign up for CEP. As a district, we enroll in CEP but there's no sign up for the parent.
But the CEP is a less attractive option than the universal meals, correct? In the way you're looking at it?
Would be in
Well, because
combination,
we're,
wouldn't it?
our free and reduced identified percentage is small. That's why it's potentially yes. But if we were higher free and reduced identified percentages, then no, it wouldn't be, because you would actually get a blended rate of a higher rate. And there's districts that aren't at 100% that still make money and break even.
And when we looked at these different programs, of course, Hatteras Elementary, Hatteras Secondary, and the alternative DLA will stay on the CEP plan currently because they're going to be on there 4 years. But in doing the universal meals, if we again had more schools that qualified for the CEP at the end of the school year, we could apply for those schools for next year to join CEP.
Which will reduce our overall costs.
Well, and I think with universal meals,
Potentially.
we're looking at potentially the same thing with the universal meals program.
But at the beginning of the day, kids still have to tell somebody that they're going to have lunch, right? They just don't show up in the line.
Yeah, they can just show up.
Can they?
Yeah.
Mhm, they can show up. We don't have to tell anyone. I mean, we do production forms. We plan ahead, so we know how many students are in the schools. They look at past production and they assess it that way. So yeah, they can actually
Is
show
that the
up.
same?
Or they
There's-
don't show up and don't eat.
They don't show up, yeah. And that's
that
what we don't want.
Is that the same way for pre-K and kindergarten?
Well, pre-K is a little different. Pre-K, they actually eat in the classroom and they let us know which students are eating and we take it to them.
Right.
Kindergarten is the same way. They actually come through the line and just like the regular students do
Okay.
as well.
Ms. Covey, have you talked with any of the cafeteria managers in the past 7 days?
That's my
since-
question I was going to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. No, that's fine.
Yes, of course, they are very excited that students are coming to eat. They are excited that because one school knows all her students and they start seeing new faces. They're very ecstatic about seeing the new faces because students are starting to come in that hadn't actually eaten. I was at a school one day and I was actually talking to students myself and they were, getting in line. They were actually at the microwave at one point in time. I was like, well, why are you at the microwave? They said, well, we're going to eat as well. So they were excited to actually be getting free meals, but they're just excited. They don't have to actually let the kids know, okay, you need to bring money, because they try to do it discreetly. They don't want to just yell it out, and they don't want to embarrass the students. And it does get embarrassing if you tell a student they owe $300. I mean, they feel bad to say that. So they're just happy that the students are feeling relaxed, coming in and just eating with us. And they don't have to actually,
So,
try to
from-
collect debt.
From what I've heard from everybody here is that we need to have some sort of marketing program to get people to sign up. So we've got to come up with a plan on how we're going to do that, how we're going to get these people to sign for free and reduced and so forth. So,
Well, if it's free and reduced, free, they don't need to sign up.
Well-
Everybody
well,
gets it.
no,
Yeah. If we're doing universal free meals, parents still need to apply for free meals. They still need to apply for free and reduced because we actually get our reimbursement based on free and reduced meals. So if they're a paying student and they're not filling an application, they may qualify for free meals, then we're missing out on that.
But the principal
$4.
could do that.
The principal could do it, yes. The thing
Okay,
of it is.
I would rather the principal be doing that than doing debt collection.
We, Mr. Woody, we've already got, as a matter of fact, Ms. Govan sent me a copy of the letter that we usually send out during this time period to get people to re-sign up. We've already started looking at that about marketing the program to say, these are other benefits, because it's not just getting school lunch. There are other benefits if you apply to this program that you receive beyond school lunches and breakfasts. So we're already looking at that about how we can get that additional information out.
Exactly. I mean,
So why can't we do that now
also.
for students that may not be, or families that aren't applying for free and reduced lunch?
We're
Go back
going
my
to.
ori- go
We're
back
going-
to
yeah,
my
we
original
can.
question.
We can
3
target
weeks-
everyone.
3 weeks ago tomorrow, one student apparently, I can't get a straight answer, had lunch taken away from him. Up until then, there's no crisis, if you will, in regards to lunches or breakfast. Not even on the radar. Nobody's talked about it. Nobody's heard about it. Facebook mafia took over. My daughter didn't get lunch today, allegedly, and all of a sudden we're here. We weren't here last summer, and I don't think we'd be here next year.
Mr. Payne, I wouldn't say no one's heard about it if 106 out of 115 districts in North Carolina are involved in it.
I'm talking about our school
I
district. 3
understand
weeks
that.
ago from tomorrow, allegedly, I can't get a straight answer from anybody on what happened that day. Did a student get lunch taken away from them or no? That's what started all this. Apparently, student went home, told mom blew it up on Facebook, and we're here today. So still not sure where our crisis is.
This has
We've
been
been here for-
going on longer than this.
I've been here
COVID,
almost 2 years, the first I've heard about it.
well, in April of 23, the House and the Senate both put bills on the floor.
Our school district, haven't heard about it. So once again, I still can't get an answer of what happened 3 weeks ago Friday. That started all of this, except for Facebook.
I don't know that it started it. It's been an ongoing thing. If COVID taught us anything, during COVID, all kids got lunch. When ESSER funds went away, when all of that stuff went away, we started to see the reality of kids that are not being fed. And we have an opportunity to feed them.
And my
And
question
we
goes
can
back to,
prove that feeding them increases our student performance,
so
which
does
is what
classroom
we are
management,
supposed
teaching
to be
Okay,
strategy.
doing.
let's everybody have.
But nobody can answer the question, how many students are not getting fed? How many? 1, 100? Nobody can answer that question. That's the question I want answered. How many kids are not getting fed if we're not feeding them or we're turning kids
There's
away?
no
Let
way.
me-
Ron,
let me
how,
finish,
how,
please.
All right, excuse
how
me,
would
let
you
me
ever,
finish.
how would you
Let me
ever?
finish,
Let-
please.
Let Ron finish his conversation.
Nobody said, has come up with a number. Is it 1? Is it 5? Is it 5,000? So
We could say the same thing about the number of people crossing the border.
Ms. Balance, let Mr. Payne have his time.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Mr. Ballas, you
No.
finish.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Let me say something. I think it's not who didn't get fed. It's how many students can we feed that aren't going in the line to get food. I mean, how can we, and that's my thought of it. I mean, if the more we can help the students, you know, because there are students that don't go through the line because they know they don't have the money.
Yep.
But they're not being refused. So my goal would be is how many more we can put through the line to feed them. That's my 2 cents.
It's a hard thing to say who isn't getting, who's having their lunches taken away, because we don't know how many kids, it's hard to put a number on something that you don't know how many kids are just not going through the line because they know they can't afford it.
But we also know that we have something in the order of, close to 60%, who are eligible for free and reduced lunches who aren't even applying. So my question, if we go to the universal funding, we would need to get people enrolled in this, correct?
Yes, sir.
What's the incentive for someone to get enrolled in it if they're going to get their free meal anyhow? Is there an incentive? Can we
Yes,
push
sir.
it?
Well, by law, we actually have to provide a free and reduced application to every student household in Dare County. So every family will receive an application of some sort. They can actually there's laptops available through certain programs, internet, reduced cost on internet and Spectrum, cable. So, I mean, that's a benefit as well. I mean, there's funding for the schools Title I schools get more funding and more on that. But there's a lot of benefit to, of course, free and reduced. We just have to, get the people to apply. I mean, actually, I had a parent come in my office. I even helped them apply. We're all, part of the solution to try to help, get families on this benefit. I mean, we target people who haven't applied. We target people who are getting ready to come off the program. And if we can't get them, we actually contact the principal and say, okay, this person needs, has a debt and we need to get them to apply, or, do they need help? So they're actually, talking to their guidance counselor. So, we are trying to get people to apply without just filling out for them until we, the principal can do that. But, we can in our office fill it out for them. We can
Mr. Payne,
actually help
you
them.
had a question that I want to try to answer. You said, who's not getting fed? No one. We're going to feed all of them. But here's how that's happening. Here's how that's happening now. Since those kids, however many that number was, who got their trays taken or didn't get food that day, our staff, our cafeteria workers, Miss Lula, my wife, teachers all over this district and principals all over this district are taking money out of their pocket and putting it in cafeterias for kids to eat. So the number of who's not getting fed, you'll never find out because there's no accurate data out there for it, because somebody is paying for those kids to eat out of their own pocket because they don't want them to go hungry.
And I did the same thing as a principal, assistant principal, and teacher also. But when we're looking at numbers, I'm a data guy. I want to hear some data. And we don't have any data. We're just saying somebody's not getting fed. I would like to.
I was just trying to.
I understand. But I think when it comes to data and we're going to make a huge decision on how much money is going to be spent or not be spent, I think we need some numbers. That's just the way I think.
I'm not sure that can be substantiated in any way, shape, or form.
Then maybe not. But I'll just go back to my original statement was up until 3 weeks ago, I've been around here for 2.5 years and hadn't heard of anything. So once again, why all of a sudden it's a crisis? Because that's what it appears to be.
We had a 5-on-5 meeting last week, and we were asked by the commissioners to come back and have a special call meeting to discuss this tonight, which we're doing so. But they are looking for us to be back at their board meeting on October 7th for a plan to present to them. If we're going to go universal funding, to see if they're willing to assist us in part of that funding. Currently, right now, we got 30 days on the books of free meals. We're using some of our fund balance to make that happen. So,
And we had a discussion tonight. I think this board needs time to think about it before we make a motion and decide on something. I don't think we should make a motion tonight and decide on it. It's too quick.
Ms. Balance?
I'll go back to my original, this is the cost of doing business. Our job is to improve student performance. Free and reduced lunches, free school lunches, and it is proven to improve student academics. It is the cost of doing business. I would make a motion tonight.
Well, before we
Before we
do,
do that,
I'm not making a motion, I just said I would.
I'm going to call on Woody, then I'll go right down the line. Woody?
I think it's been a spirited debate. I think, I mean, I'm for universal meals because it's what the superintendent recommended, because he understands the ins and the outs of what's going on in the schools. And I feel that the more students that we can feed, the better it's going to be.
Ms. Bothwell?
Totally agree with what Carl just said. If the kids don't eat, they can't function properly. Their brains don't work right. And we can't differentiate between who can pay for lunch and who can't. So why wouldn't we make sure all the kids get a good lunch?
Mr. Wicker?
I don't think anybody should go without eating, but you need to get a handle on what it's going to cost before you go ask the commissioners for money.
there really is no such thing as a free lunch. There's always an opportunity cost. You're foregoing something else to get that free lunch. My biggest concern, and it's what I said last week, is how it's funded and what we're giving up, okay? Now, if it comes out, if the funding, if it's a benevolent gift from, the Board of Commissioners, I'm fine, that's great. They're gonna fund it. But if it has to come out of, the student funding formula, then we need to start looking at what other things can't be funded, or, what is this coming at the expense of? So I guess what I'd like to know is what the mechanism would be for funding this. And Steve, you could probably answer that.
So far in any, and you sat on the 515, so you can probably talk about this as well as I can. I haven't heard any discussions that with the commissioners to this point, that it would come out of our funding or money that would be taken from our funding to be used for this. And I heard someone the other day say, take that and hire 40 teachers or whatever, some number. They haven't offered us the ability to do that. What the discussions have been so far is that they were interested in the possibility of providing funding for this.
For this alone.
And that's all that's been discussed.
And that's why the 5-on-5 asked that we come tonight to discuss it, to come back to be with them on October 7th.
So then the motion that's about to be made is that we are going to request from the Board of Commissioners universal lunches as a separate item from our funding as it exists now and as it will be going forward, correct?
That's how I would.
Well, before we do that, I want to have the respect as I ask each one of you just to talk. I want to do as well.
Well, that's the question though that I was asking.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I, for one, is with the rest with universal meals, especially the presentation that you gave just a few minutes ago, that it will benefit them with other items throughout this county. That would be very helpful too. I would hope that you would have the time for your staff on the teacher work days in the near future to take as your managers come in and have them work with the application process to let them reach out along with the schools, instead of putting the burden on the school administrators, have some of your managers come in and work on that program, because it is very important that we have as many kids in our district signed up for that, not only just for the free meals that will reimburse us, but also have the family time that they need in their house, as well as spectrum or telephone or internet, computers, things like that. So let them know that whole big picture instead of it just showing just for free food in Dare County schools.
Yeah, it's one thing that you brought up was it's part of the campaign to register more folks. Just don't focus it on the school meals. Focus it
On the whole
on the
picture.
whole package.
Yeah.
Because people are like, well, cheaper internet? Well, I might be for that, and they might come in and fill out the paperwork. And I don't know if you can do this or not, but have some sort of maybe evening workshops with parents where they can come in, fill out the paperwork, and just make it a big campaign and just reach out.
I mean, we
Kind of
have,
doubtful that could happen because it's not happening now for free and reduced lunches, but, well, but the applications haven't gone up. That's the thing. If we have 55, 60% who are eligible and they're not even taking advantage of it.
maybe cafeteria open house.
We do. We actually attend the open house at every school, and they're there for parents to complete as well.
So as we move forward and bring this in front of the Board of Commissioners, we're going to have a drafted request that I presume you will present, David?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Maybe Mr. Bass Knight will present that.
Okay, and it's going to be funded as its own thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And is there going to be a cap on that, or is it going to be able to increase each year? How's that going to
I
work?
think what we'll do is request it this year, and during our budget process, upcoming fiscal year next year, we'll see where we're at and bring that in as that line item to let the commissioners know this is what we're seeing. And then this is what we'll be adding to or deducting from. So we may go either way, Mr. Payne.
But won't the commissioners be getting like a monthly bill on going this route?
Well, they will be getting them.
As our costs accrued?
Yes, yes, sir.
They'll get them?
They'll get it.
There are several ways to work that out, and our finance department will meet with their finance department and find the most advantageous way to provide them with that information.
So really, from the standpoint that we're discussing, it really does not affect our budget at all, does it?
No, sir.
Currently, right now, it does, because we're using our fund balance for just the first 30 days.
Right.
But for what we're looking forward, no, sir, Mr. Brown.
And the more kids that are on the free and reduced lunch will reduce the amount that we
Correct.
have to get from.
Yes, sir.
the county.
Yes.
So that's
And
what-
we should be
that's
able to
still-
get better numbers, because starting this now before the application period for CEP will give us a better idea of what we've got, right?
Correct. Mhm.
Or what we could have,
What we could
potentially have.
Potentially.
Historically, it's always been hard to get families to sign up for free and reduced lunch.
Well, I mean, it's hard to get families to do a lot of things.
God, sometimes it's hard to get the kids out the door,
But as we said many times, our commissioners has been very helpful working with us throughout situations that has occurred through the year. And that's the agreement we have with them about our fund balance. I know in the past, some did not like that, but we have a working agreement with them that we keep $1 million in that fund balance. Anything over that goes back to the commissioners. Anything under that, we see a need that may have come up between that year. They've been right there to help us and pay for it. So.
And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, and not call you out, B, but I feel like to some extent, this opportunity that they're presenting us with doesn't just help us. You think about the city and county workers that we have that have children in school that are trying to pay for lunches, that have 2 or 3 or 4 kids in school that now are putting more money in their pocket and not at we can help them out, not just our county and sheriff department, those things, but even our restaurant workers and our other administrative workers at rental companies that are not making.
But they're
Yeah,
not taking
workforce.
advantage of it as it is now.
Right.
That's what the numbers show.
Yeah.
They're certainly not putting it in their pocket, they're putting it in the grocery store.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I'll be happy to make a motion.
But before you do, can I say one thing?
Sure.
I mentioned a while ago, our school staffs, our teachers, our principals, and our cafeteria workers, and all the people year in and year out that have taken upon themselves to step up and do well beyond their job description for our students. And I want to just say thank you to
Absolutely.
everyone that's done that, and continues to do it, for things beyond the cafeteria. Because it's more than a job, and people take it that way. And I just want them to know how much we appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Even beyond that, we had a parent go through the steps of setting up a 501c3
Yeah,
to try to, I think it's a neater way, a cleaner way to approach it if we, go the universal route.
I would make the motion that authorize the chair and the superintendent to approach the the Board of Commissioners to request funding for a universal lunch plan outside of our funding formula at their next board meeting.
Universal meals. not just
Universal
lunch.
meals.
We have a motion on the floor by Ms.
I'll
Balance,
second.
second by Mr. Woody. Any further discussion?
Still think we need more time to think about it and discuss it before we pass this motion. I think that would be the prudent thing to do. Not that it's not going to pass in the future, but to come here and in an hour and a half, make this big decision, I think we need to think about it overnight, so to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Any other further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any negatives? Nay. Motion carries 6-1. Ms. B, I forgot to recognize you here earlier in the meeting, so thank you so much for being here tonight. So we certainly do appreciate your support. With that being said, do I have a motion on the floor to adjourn? Motion by Ms. Bothwell, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Balance. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.